Hello, hello, all of my Crop and Create friends. I see so many names that I recognize over in the chat, and I see our Queen Bee Melissa is here, and Jennifer, and I see Kathy. Lots of our friends that join our live streams on Monday and Wednesday nights. Lisa and I are sitting here and we recognize your names. It's so fun to see all of you in the chat. But we do have a problem. We have decided that Catherine has totally messed up the schedule because I should have been the opening act. And Kathy, CZ, what is it? CZ like Sunday morning? She should have been the headliner. I'm just saying, right? I mean, how do we follow up the singing and the fun and the ink blending and those beautiful cards? Love it. So, okay, you guys. Ha ha ha. Kathy, we see you. We had so much fun. We were giggling the whole time. We love it. All right. All right, you guys. So we're going to jump into some card making. I know you guys have watched the prep video. If you haven't, it will always be there for you guys to watch. We're going to make the cards. We're going to do it in a little bit of a assembly line process. So we're going to start out and do our owls first, and then we're going to start building those cards and putting them all together. And I think that once you get to the third owl, you're going to have that down pat. And each card and each owl, as you will notice as we go along, is going to be a little bit stepped up every time. And it's just to give you ideas on how you can take your dies, any dies, and kind of step them up, whether you are starting out with just solid colored cardstock, maybe you want to do some florals or something like that out of pattern paper, or you want to start with white cardstock ink blend and get a little bit more fancy. So each one is going to be a little bit more stepped up as we go along. And what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to switch down here to my desk view. And then we're going to get started. This is our very first card. So this is what I'm going to call the basic one. So this is going to be what it would be like if you are cutting all of your owl pieces out of solid colored cardstock that you have in your craft room. So this is a great way to use up your scrap pieces. And I have all of my die cuts here in a little bag all ready to go. And so if you'll pull out your die cuts for card 1, and that is the one that we cut out, and I labeled in the instructions as the solid cardstock. I've got all my little pieces all ready to go here, and my eyeballs. Who doesn't love a good little piece of press and seal all ready to go so I don't lose those little pieces? We have our background and our sentiments, and then I'm going to pull out all of my little pieces, and I'm actually going to pour them into a dish so I don't lose them. All right. All right, so I am going to use liquid adhesive because you're going to want to have a little bit of time to have some wiggle room on these. And anytime that you are adhering, especially like little buildable die cuts and things like that, a liquid adhesive is a really good idea to use just so you can kind of wiggle everything around and get it into place. Okay, so we're going to want to start out with the orangey kind of mustard colored base of the owl. It's the one that has the little feet attached. And you'll notice that this layer has the least amount of detail. And if any of you are familiar with any of our lovely layers die sets, you'll notice that some areas of the dies or your die cuts, we're going to have lots of embossed detail, and then other portions are not. And most of the time on these die cuts, the portions that are flat are the ones that we're going to cover up with other layers. Okay, and so we're going to start out with the base of the owl. We're going to take the next layer, if I can pick it up here. which is the medium brown little body. And you can see all of his little feather details here and things like that. But if you notice in his little face, you can see the face is open here. That's because when we layer these together, you're going to be able to see all those little details that were created in that base layer. Okay, so I'm actually going to put my liquid adhesive on the back side of the medium brown piece, and it doesn't take a lot. I'm just going to add some dots here and there so I can catch the edges. And then we can kind of place him down, and I like to pick it up, and you can see it's not perfect yet, and that's what we want. That's why we like liquid adhesive, because then we can kind of shimmy everything around and get everything kind of puzzle pieced together, just like so. And now we can see all the little details in the opening of his face. We have all his little chest feathers here. And then you'll notice on this layer, now the wings are all flat. That's because we're going to add some more details onto that. So let's take the next piece, and I'm going to hold out both of the wings. You'll notice one is a larger size that has another flat piece. And then one is smaller that has all that great detail. Well, we know this one is going to be on top because it includes all the details that are pressed into the paper. So we're going to go next with the large wing, the larger size wing. I'm going to add a little bit of liquid adhesive, dot it around, and then the same thing. We can kind of puzzle piece him together, line up the bottom of his wings and his little feathers down here, and then use our fingers to kind of press and slide everything into place. And then when we get these layers adhered, this is what your owl should look like. You can see we haven't covered up any of the details over here on the medium brown. We have all these pretty details right down here. And then we have the open area that is open for that last die cut for the wing. Now, I want to mention before we get too far, when you are creating this at home, or you're creating this after the class or something like that, in your instruction book, there is a layering guide that we had printed in there for you. And this is going to help you know, which die cut comes first and then all the way to the last, to adding all the little pieces into his little face. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and let's add the last little piece to our wing. And I have Lisa here who's helping me moderate. So if there's any questions, she's going to just let me know. Now, when we lay down this top wing, I want you to notice that it is going to puzzle piece in right up here on his shoulder. It's not going to fit in right down here with the bottom feathers. We want those bottom gray feathers to kind of hang out down there, like all of his layered wings and feathers and his tail are all tucked up in here. And then this is what we have so far. All right. Pretty stinking cute already, right? Okay. I don't want to go too fast before we move on. All right. So the next piece that we're going to adhere is, this is what I'm calling like a mask for his face. And it has like his little chin area, or what looks like a little beard on the owl. You can see it right over here on the finished card. This is going to be the first layer that we adhere onto his face. And it's the really light gray color. All right, and just like the other parts of the owl, let me kind of hold it up. You'll notice that the little mask that's already here in the medium brown is all nice and flat, because that means that we're going to cover that part up with detail. So I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to add just little bits of adhesive. And if you guys hear, we have a thunderstorm going through here. And so the thunder, if you hear rumbling, it's thunder. Okay, so we're going to lay this down. That liquid adhesive is going to give us time to kind of shimmy everything around. We can press it into place. And then his little beard and everything are going to line up right down here under his little chin and under his feathers. And then this is what it should look like so far. Okay. Let's see here. I thought I heard rumblings. Yes, it is rumbling here. Okay. Now the next part that we want to grab is the part that is his little mask. And you can see the eyes where there's an impressed part for the eyes. There's all the little feathers up on his head. And this is the next part that we're going to adhere down. So I'm going to take my little dots here and there. And I'm going to lay it down. And I don't have to be real careful at first. But before that adhesive has time to set up, I'm going to shimmy all those little pieces right into their spot. And do you see how all that is kind of coming together now? Just like so. I had to recut the eyes. I lost one this morning. Yes, I'm so thankful that I stuck mine in my little press and seal, because now I've got all my little sets of eyeballs stuck in there. Okay, well, let's look. Let's see here. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, I'm going to carefully open up my little press and seal envelope that I made. And you're going to want to grab, and I love my reverse tweezers for little parts like this, because it gets my big fingers out of the way when I am maneuvering little die cuts. So if you have a pair of, or a set of tweezers, those are going to be really handy for you. And these puppies are stuck in there really well. You can tell I pressed it really well. I'm going to open it up about that far. Okay, so I'm going to grab my reverse tweezers, and then I'm going to grab one of the yellow eyes. They look like a little C. And this is not going to take a whole lot of adhesive. You can kind of do a little tap, tap, tap. And those are just going to nestle in to those little embossed places that were added with the die. And you can kind of use your tweezers. Do you see how the tips of those tweezers kind of remove your fingers out of the way? And it lays the die down, but also it gives you more space to see kind of where you're placing everything. Okay, I'm going to take the other eyeball, and I'm going to dab, dab, dab. Just a little dab will do you there. And I'm going to use my tweezers again, and then go right down. And I kind of like to use my fingernail or the tip of my finger. And then we're going to place that into place and then tap down just like so. Okay. Now look how he's all coming together there. Tweezers are a must with tiny pieces. Yes, Laura said. Absolutely. Okay, so for the rest of his face, we're going to take this funny little piece. It almost looks like a branch or a limb of a tree. It's kind of funny looking. It has a Y on one side, but this is going to be the little finishing piece to his mask on his face. And so I'm going to use my tweezers again because they're so handy. And then I'm just going to dab, dab, dab. And then this piece, you'll notice, let me set my tweezers down, that there's the little, they almost look like little eyelash areas on the sides of his eyes. The little funny shapes on the edge of his little mask are going to fit into that area on his face. So I'm just going to nestle it in and use my tweezers as extra help. And you can kind of hold and let that liquid adhesive do its job. And then there we go. Okay, so this one went from just basic solid colored cardstock scraps into this pretty layered owl. And then this one, guys, is all finished. See all the amazing detail? Now, I will mention, if you want to go back later on and then add on some little embellishments or some gel pen or colored pencils or something like that, you can totally do that. I'm going to leave this one as our basic die cut owl, just like this one. Okay, I'm going to set it aside because we're going to kind of go in assembly line mode here. All right, so I'm going to take my die cuts for my patterned owl. Now, this is a great way when you get patterned paper in your, anytime you get patterned paper. I don't know if you're like me, but I have a hoard of patterned paper. And some of the patterns are really little. Some of them, you know, look like burlap. Some of them look like linen texture. There's all different types of looks to patterned paper. Now, this one would be a great one to pull out some of those great basics in patterned paper that are great for little die cuts like this, but they're also great for just basic backgrounds on your cards. But sometimes it's fun to pull out the patterns. Okay, so just like the first basic owl, let me see if I can pull him out. What did I do with him? So this is the patterned owl, and this is where we're going to step it up just a touch, just a little bit. So I'm going to set him down right here so we can see him. And then we can look at our patterns. So anytime that you have, let's say, a watercolor background pattern paper in a paper pad, or ones that have little nubby texture, this one almost looks like, close up, looks like teddy bear fur or something like that. And we'll talk about some of the other textures in here. But this owl, with all the look of his feathers and things like that, it's a great one to pull out some of those pattern papers that we've been hoarding to add a little bit of texture to our die cuts. Okay, just like we did on the first owl. We're going to start out with the base layer that has the little feet. He's got impressed areas in his little face. And then we're going to add on the medium brown textured side. It almost looks fuzzy. And we're going to puzzle piece it down. So I'm going to line up the little points to his tail, over to his feet, and then I can kind of shimmy everything around to make sure everything's lining up. And then this is what we have so far. See where the color, the variation in the color here, it's very subtle, but it's going to give you a different look than what we're calling our solid cardstock owl. You can see the variations here, and then the more solid color here. So I urge you and I challenge you to pull out those pattern paper pads to see what you can create with your die cuts. All right, let's see. Are you a true crafter if you don't hoard paper? Exactly. LB Unleash. I like your train of thought there. I do hoard my paper. Okay, the next layer we're going to take is that big wing again, the base wing. So here's the small one, and then here's the larger one. And you can see the larger one was cut out of that kind of textured, moody, gray, black cardstock. So we're going to flip it over and just a little dab of dooya here. And then I can flip it, and we're going to line up the little points on this one. And then drop it down. And then we know that we're not going to cover up any of that beautiful embossed area on his chest. We want all those pretty feathers and things that were pressed into the paper to stay right there and to show. Thank you, Miss Sharon. Got distracted by geese on the roof and forgot to glue part of the wing. They want to get it. I always get to chatting, and so I'm trying to concentrate because I'm chatty Kathy, and I will I'll go rogue here on our owl.
Asking, how did you get the white stacks on there?
I'm going to show you. We're going to do this together here in just a second. It is gel pen. It's a gel pen. I am feeling better, Angie. Thank you. Can you tell? I've been resting my voice and sucking on cough drops and all the things. Okay, we're going to take the smaller layer to our wing that has all that beautiful embossed area that's covering the whole thing. And that's the part we're going to add next. And I'm going to flip it. And then this is the one that we want to use the shoulder area to line up. We don't want to cover up his kind of little tail area and the tips of his wings. We want to line it up here on the shoulder. So I'm going to kind of drop it down, and then I can shimmy it right into place, and then make sure all those little ridges and everything in his little shoulder all line up nicely. And do you see now that we, using the pattern paper, how it's very subtle patterns. So sometimes when you're doing like big florals and leaves and things like that, you can use patterns that are like ginghams and polka dots and things like that. When you're doing more of like the crittery type die cuts or layering dies and things like that, it's fun to pull out those little patterns like a burlap or a linen or something like that, that just adds a little bit of texture to your die cuts. But it's a great way to use up our paper pads that we have. Okay, Now that we've got the majority of his body done, let's go ahead and let's start working on his little face. And so we're going to layer it exactly like we did the first one. And we're going to start out with the very pale gray mask that has the little beard area. That's what I'm going to call it. So we're going to do the little pale gray mask that has the little beard area. We can flip it over and we're going to dot, dot, dot. Little bits here and there. And then we're going to line it up under his little chin. And we can shimmy everything around to make sure we have it pressed into place. And then we're going on his little face here.
Will you let them know about the paper pad coming?
Yes. Oh, yes. So we've had a lot of requests while you guys are working on it here and here. We've had a lot of requests for this paper. Of course, we designed it exclusively for you guys. We put in a lot of thought of what would be beautiful with the die cuts. And we have heard your requests, and there will be a paper pad coming out in May, in our May release, that will give you more paper to go with your owl. Now, I have to warn you, or get you excited. I don't know, whichever. But we're going to have some accessories that go with the owl. So this die cut set, or the die set that we gave you for the kit, has the branch. You're going to have some more accessories to go with your owl or your Lovely Layers birds or whatever you like. And I'll kind of show you some of our other birds when we get finished up. But be on the lookout on our May release for more fun stuff to go with your owl. Yay for paper, yes. And I have let Melissa know because I have gotten specific requests, especially for this background and the other one, the third card. And I have let her know specifically they want this one or they want that one. Like, give us lots. So, yeah, I have given her every one of your requests. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the little mask that has his little face pressed into it with his eyes and the little feathers that are on his head. So we're going to flip it over and we're going to add little dots here. And we're going to nestle it down. And you can line up the little horns on his head or ears or whatever you want to call them. I don't think it's I think it's just feathers. Birdie ears are actually, I don't know if you guys know this. This is probably too much information, but birds' ears are actually just holes in the side of their head. We have pet birds here at my house. We actually just adopted a new bird yesterday. We're a zoo here, you guys.
It's total zoo.
It's Lisa's saying it's a total zoo. So we've got 4 pet birds in my house. My daughter is a vet tech, and so we collect all the animals, and we have 4 birds. Our largest bird is about this real life size. We have a macaw. So maybe I can post a picture of Walter like in the group or something, but we're a whole hot mess here with the animals. Okay, so let's go ahead. We have his black mask on his face with his little eyes. Let's go ahead and let's add the second set of yellow eyes that we have kind of stuck to our tape or stuck in our press and seal. And I'm going to be really careful opening this because knowing me, if I opened it too fast, they would like fling out across the room and then I would never find them. I'm going to use my tweezers again because they're so handy. And then I'm going to dot, dot, dot. And see, you probably can hear I have an Australian Shepherd and she's very ticked off right now because it's thundering and because Mom has locked her out of the room. So they're in timeout. And I'm just going to dot the glue. And then they're super easy because the dies have given that impressed area. They're super easy to know where they go and where to line them up. I'm going to take my second little C-shape eye. And then we can I'm not even squeezing my glue. Oh, let's not go rogue here. I'm not even squeezing my glue pen. I'm just touching the residual that's on the tip right there, so we don't have like a squishy mess. And then I can set that in to that embossed area and then tap it down with the point. Let's see, I can't wait to make these cards. Yay! I kept my owl sets in somewhere. I miss it. The
gum containers.
A gum container. Oh yeah, the little flip top. How brilliant is that? You know, I always learn the most cool ideas from you guys, honestly, because I told somebody, I think in the video, I said put them on a piece of washi tape or, you know, something to stick them down. And somebody was like, you need to use the press and seal. And I was like, oh yeah, I do have press and seal in my craft room. Absolutely, I need to use my press and seal. Okay, now we're going to take that funny looking little branch Y little mask piece that's going to go around his eyes. And I'm going to add it on. Just dab, dab, dab. And I always like to use, on especially little tiny die cuts, my finger and just kind of give it just a little bit of a smooth out. And it does two things. It spreads out your adhesive, but it also is going to make it to where it doesn't kind of squish out all over. And I'm going to nestle this right down in there. And again, the edges of his eyes where it looks like little eyelashes coming out on the sides, that's where you're going to line up the sides. And then this part falls down where his beak would be. It nestles right on the top of those C parts of the little cut eyes. And then we have this one all put together. Okay, now let's add some pretty details to this one. This is our number 2 kind of stepped up version of this owl, right? So there's a few things that you can do. So when you're dressing up your die cuts, there's lots of ways that you can play with them to add just a little bit of, you know, dress up to them. So you can always use colored pencils. Those are a great choice. If you want to use your alcohol markers, another great choice. It depends on the look that you're going for. Now, colored pencils, some of them may not show up on this dark paper, but I kind of go through, and here's the thing. I cheat. Anytime a die cut is going to give you all of this great embossing area, we know that that's where all the little details are going to be because it's already pressed into the paper. So I cheat. I use those embossing lines to know where to add the pencil or the Copic marker or the little white gel pen or something like that. So don't reinvent the wheel on some of these. All you have to do is dress them up just a little bit. You can add a little bit of black with your colored pencil. Down in here on this more medium color brown, your dark pencils are really going to show up better, and I'm going to show you. And I don't even do every little embossed line. Skip it around a little bit because that's what a owl or a bird or something like that is going to look like in the wild. It's not going to have just all, you know, perfectly groomed feathers. So you can add your colored pencil. That's a great idea. You can add, you know, dark pencils up here into his head. and darken up those little areas. And this is like whatever floats your boat. If you don't like to dress up your die cuts, then by all means, you can leave yours just the pattern paper. Okay, so that's colored pencils. Now let's talk about gel pens for a second. So on my owl cards, I've used 2 different gel pens, a white one and a black one. And I always recommend when I do my crafting live streams and things like that on the video, if you're going to get any type of gel pen, get a white one and a black one, because you can use it to dress up florals on your cards. You can use them to dress up critters. For example, we all made those super cute little lawn fawn critter cards, right? A little bit of gel pen to kind of zhuzh up their little cheeks or the little fur on their back to add little spots and things like that. That's what I like to do. If you want to just add just a little something to your stamped and colored images or to your die cuts and things. It's just a way to add a little bit of fun. Okay, now there's a couple of areas that I'm going to use gel pen on my little owl. And let me give you a little hint, because I saw somebody in the comments say that they had trouble getting their gel pen to work. So I always recommend anytime before you take your gel pen to your die cuts, any kind of image, you want to start it on another piece of paper, a scrap piece of paper first. That's going to get that gel ink and things coming out, and it's going to get it flowing well through your pen, and then you're not going to have a mess on whatever image that you're adding details to.
Tracy's asking if she can use her black glaze pen.
Yes, that's what this one is. It's a black glaze pen. Yes, I recommend using whatever you want. I use this glaze for anything black, and I really like the Uniball Signo white for the white gel pen. It's very opaque. It's very smooth when it comes out. I just really like this one, and I've used all different kinds. Okay, I'm going to do the white first. So this is where anywhere you want to add just a little bit of a white look of feathers, like right over here, just a little flick of white. And it's just going to give that hint that this owl has a little bit of gray in him or a little bit of fluffy white. Most birds, underneath their big pretty feathers that we see, they've got downy feathers underneath. And so, you know, my birds, they lose their little downy feathers. Those come out when they molt, and then they lose some of their larger feathers. But anywhere you want just a little flick of having a hint of gray or white, that. Just a little bit here and there. And I don't do every part. I just do a little bit here and there. Spread it around. Let's see. Right on your hand is another way to get the gel pen started working. Yes. Who carries them? Honeybee has both of these. The black glaze. I'm sure lots of other companies do too, but I know for sure because Melissa, I always tell Melissa and Lisa, I need new gel pens. And they also have this one, the Uniball. Okay, I'm going to call it good on the white. Let's go to the black one now, and let me show you what a black one's going to do. Same thing. They always get just a little bit of schmutz on the end, and you kind of want to roll it off and get your pen started. And then you can add the black feathers into his body. Just in a little bit. You don't want to add a lot of pressure to this one at all because it's really going to come out. And then what I really like to do for this one is I went inside here, and I'm going to add that glossy look very carefully. And we're going to make him a shiny black beak. Let me hold it up. And I'm going to tilt it so you can see it. Do you see now how that made it look like a real bird's beak there? Right inside, and use that little light gray piece. Use that as your guide. Another place that you can add white is to the eyes. You can leave them just like that, or you can go into that little embossed area, and I'm just barely gonna touch it. Just a dot. Do you see how that really made his face? See all the little details just by adding little dots to the eyes and then adding a glossy beak and then just little random feathers here and there. Another place you can add black are his little talons. Okay. Yep, the eyes popped out. I mean, it's beautiful just like this. Do you see how we're stepping it up each time? So we have just solid colored cardstock. We have textured-y looking pattern paper. And then we added all of our little kind of feathers and zhuzh it up a little bit with the colored pencils and the gel pens, things like that. Just dress up those die cuts.
Jennifer's saying he needs a name.
He needs a name. He needs a name. Ooh, Oliver the Owl.
That works.
That works. Okay, so I'm going to set both of these aside now. And now we're going to get into the all white one. So this is going to take us just a minute. It's not going to be as long as you think it's going to be. Okay, so I'm going to take my all white die cuts. And I may need to get a sip of coffee before we bust this one out.
Graphic.com says he should be called Kohout.
It is. That is funny. Oh, Melissa said that too. Yes, my last name is Kohout. Like you all 2,900 of you and me, we're all in cahoots now. And so like my whole married life, I went from Kelley Jones to Kelley Kohout. And all my married life, you know, I get all kinds of versions. Kohout. You hear everything every time you go to the doctor's office. No, you know, you just answer to whatever they call you. And so, yes, but it's Kohout. So, yes. Okay.
Oliver Kohout.
Oliver Kohout. There we go, Heather. Yes. Okay. White die cuts. I'm going to leave my little corner right here so we can see them. Okay. Now, we're going to start out with the bottom layer. And I'm going to get Mr. whatever we want to name this little guy. Okay. So this is the one that starts out as all white paper. And then we're going to blend on and play with ink and pencils and all that good stuff to zhuzh him up, decorate these die cuts. So I'm going to lay him right here so we can kind of look at him.
Kelley says she'll never forget how to pronounce your name now.
No, Kohout. That's right. Okay. So on the bottommost layer that has his foot, the only thing that we need to ink blend on this one are his little feet. So you could add, you know, like a mustard yellow. You could do them black if you wanted to, if you wanted him to have black feet, whatever color that you want him to have, we're going to ink blend on his feet. And I'm going to show you something. I'm going to use gathered twigs. But I'm going to show you. As I mentioned before, any of these areas right in here that are flat and don't have the embossing on them, these are all going to be covered up. So when you ink blend his feet, there's no reason to need to mask anything. So you can just go right in and blend it up, because all of this is all going to be covered up with his layers and with his feathers. So after you get this blended on, you're finished with that layer. That's all we need to do. And then you can just set him aside. So I use gathered twigs. Use whatever color you want. Love the background that looks dimensional, even though that it's flat. Yes, it's a fun one. Your teaching style rocks. Thank you, Terry. Okay, so now that we've got his little feet done, let's go ahead and move on to layer 2. Okay, now we know that anywhere that there is embossed feathers, that is what's going to show. So that's where we're going to want to spend a little bit more time and be a little bit more careful on where we're blending and how we're blending and what colors we're blending on. And, the fun thing is with doing these die cuts and ink blending is my next owl, this little guy, is not going to turn out and look exactly like that one. It's all handmade. We've inked it at different times, and that is okay. Every one of them are going to look a little bit different, just like they would in nature. Okay, so this is where we're going to pull in some grays on this layer. So hickory smoke is a more of a cool tone gray, and pumice stone is more warm. So if you want your owl more of a cool tone, then maybe use more hickory smoke. If you want to add in just a little touch of brown, warm color, then you can add in the pumice stone or whatever grays you want to use. Now, I am a huge, huge fan of using my dirty blending brushes. I only dip into ink if I really need to. I'm always going to start with what's on my brush. And it's going to do two things for you. It's going to give you a little bit more control, especially if you want that kind of hazy, light-handed look. You start with your dirty brush first. And then if you need to go into your ink, you can always dip in later. As Kathy was saying this morning when she was ink blended, you can always add on more, but you can't take it off once it's already added onto there. Okay, so this is the hickory smoke brush. So this is more of that cool gray color. And I'm going to come up here and just flick under his chin a little bit. I'm tilting the brush on its side and just using the side of the brush kind of to add some color. And then we can take pumice stone, and this is just going to warm it up just a little bit. And we can do it just in certain areas. Maybe we want to add a little bit of pumice stone, right under his belly, right on his chest.
Kathy likes the grays.
Kathy likes the grays, yes. And anytime, and I'm sure Kathy mentioned this too as well. Anywhere that you want the most pigment, the most color, that's where you want to start. If you want it to fade out, and we'll talk about it here in a minute, especially with the blue areas, you want to start your brush where you want it to be the darkest and then drag up, because it's going to lay down the most pigment in that area. For example, right here on that ridge, do you see how dark that got? And then it faded out as we pulled the brush down. So start where you want more and then fade up into, where you want less of that color. So let's add a little bit of the pumice stone, and it's not going to be a lot. See how it warmed up his little belly right down here? And there we go. I hope that's making sense to everybody.
Yeah, they said it's a great tip.
Okay. Now, the next thing I like to do when using any of our lovely layers, whether it's a floral or a bird or anything, is I like to lay my layering die cuts together like this, because you can see, okay, I've got his feet. They all look colored nicely. I have this layer. It's looking good. His little cheeks and his face stayed nice and crisp and white because we didn't drag the brush up there. We didn't do anything up there. And so everything's looking good. Now, if you want like the little backside of the little horns or the little ears up there to be a little touch of gray, then you can always go back. So before you glue anything, lay them down, get the lay of the land here, and then see how that added just that little pop right back there to his little horns. But you kind of lay everything out and see like how we're going here. Okay, next, let's take the large wing. So we've got the large wing and we have the small wing. I'm going to take the large wing first. Okay, we're going to lay it down. And I'm going to start with hickory smoke. And you'll notice here on our little tester owl, our little sample, do you see how dark this is up under here? It's because it's kind of tucked under. You're getting the darker, areas of his wings. Are they being funny in the chat?
They're still talking about Oliver Kohout.
Oliver Kohout. So I'm going to start because I want this area up here near his shoulder and into his chest. I want that darker. So I'm going to start up here because that's where it's going to drag on all of that pigment. And remember, I'm starting with my dirty brush. So start with your dirty brush, blend it down. If you want it heavier than that, press harder into those bristles and it's going to lay down even more ink. But I'm going to go a little bit lighter handed and I'm going to pull it down.
Jacqueline said she could listen to you all day.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So I'm starting off heavier pressure up here and I'm letting up on the head of the brush as I move to the tip of the wing. So heavy, lighter, 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 and then nothing. And then this up here, you really don't have to worry about because that's our flat area that we're going to cover up. Okay. And then it looks like the tip of the wing here is still left white. It does have just a little hint of gray on it. But this is another great tip. I think it was Gina that was mentioning this is a great way to get variations in your ink color without having to switch inks or have multiple colors of the same ink, multiple shades of the same ink. So we started out really, really deep here and faded all the way to almost white. I love to do that when I blend florals and things too, because I can do one green for a leaf, but get a really, really deep shade and blend it all the way out into something that's really, really light and more delicate. Uh-oh.
Stephanie says her owl looks like he flew into the fireplace.
Our owl looked like it flew into the fireplace. That's okay. This is your tester owl. It's okay. This is our practice owl. Let's see, struggling here. Do I listen to Kelley or read the hilarious comments? I'm glad that I'm not looking at the comments because you guys would have me cracking up.
I'm trying so hard not to laugh.
I know Lisa's trying not to laugh, and then she gets to giggling, and then I look up. So, okay. Now let's add on some blue. This is where we're going to get fun. So I've got a blending brush. You can also use these little finger daubers are awfully handy. It's whatever you're most comfortable with. Now this is Uncharted Mariner. This is a very rich, dark color. So we're not going to go super heavy-handed. We almost want it to look like this smoked out blue. It's going to tie in with the leaves that are in this background. And I'm going to start way down here off of the tip of the wing. And we're going to go up. But I'm going to go like this because I do not want that much ink left on my brush. Okay, so I'm going to start here. And we're going to start adding little bits of blue. Really light-handed. Blend it up into his chest a little bit. And then if I pick it up, then we have the blue that blends into the gray. Jennifer is giving Lisa a challenge. Uh-oh. Love those daubers. Never know you put them on your finger. Yes. They're amazing. Okay. Are you guys feeling good about this layer? Now, let me show you. Remember how we talked about how you can stack them all up to see where we're headed here? Especially when you're starting with white paper and you're ink blending everything. So you just kind of do like a loose little line up here. And then look what we have so far. So I'll move my hands. And you can kind of take the lay of the land here. You're like, do I want to add, a darker area to this layer? Do I need to add, darker up here? Do I want more blue? What do we want to do? I think he's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay.
So he wants to know what color blue you use.
It is Uncharted Mariner. And I chose this one specifically because it matches the leaves right there. I wanted to pull out that blue. But if you wanted to pull out like the pink of the flower or the coral color, you could totally do that too. I mean, this is just a fun owl, right? But I did look up. There are owls that have blue feathers. I did look that up. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is his top wing. I'm going to use my Hickory Smoke brush again, which is the more cool tone gray. And you'll notice that this wing is lighter than the wing underneath. So let me do a little wipe down here. I've got fuzzies that will never come off. Okay. So I'm going to lay that one down. And then I'm going to start because I want my darkest area right here. So that's where I'm going to start my brush because that's where most of that pigment is going to kind of lay down. So I'm going to start it right on there with the most pressure. Blend up and around and kind of catch what was going to be his shoulder up there. And then really light going down to the rest. I'm like barely adding any pressure right on the tip here. You can kind of take your brush and do a little bit of flicking. It's going to darken up those edges, but now we have a really nice, gradient look going from darker right around the edges where those shadows and things would fall into really super light on the ends. Okay. Let's see here. Wait till you see Kelly's winter owl. Yes, I'll show you all of our samples here when we get to the end. How are we doing on time?
12:30.
Okay. So we'll get to rolling here in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Blue brush. Okay, the same thing. This layer is going to be even less than the one underneath. Barely going to kiss the edges with the blue, just so it has a hint of that shade. Okay, you can kind of line them all up to make sure that you're going to be happy with how that looks. And then we're going to rock and roll on here. Okay, this layer that has the little beard, very light gray. If you want to add anything at all. Very light. You want it to blend in with his chest.
Okay, tell Libby that the owl's coming out in May.
The owl is coming out in May. Let's see here. Yes. The owl will come out at Honeybee in May. Okay, this layer that has the eyes pressed into it. We're going to do the same gray. So hickory smoke, and we're going to press a little bit harder. Do you see how the little mask layer that has his little eyes and stuff pressed into it? Little bit more pressure. I'm going to start up here towards his ears. So it's darker and catching a lot of that pigment off of the bristles right up there. Swirling back and forth. Catch all those little nooks and crannies. And then we'll kind of blend it out a little bit and make it a little more soft as it comes down towards the bottom. You can hit those little areas that are on the cheeks. There we go. Let's see, I'm loving my owl so far. I'm impressed. I'm so glad, Robin. All right, I'm going to lay this little guy aside. Okay, and then we have the little branch-shaped little mask. I'm leaving mine white, just like that. I'm going to leave it white. But we need to do something with the eyeballs. If you want your eyeballs to be the same shade as the tail feathers or the wing feathers like I did, then that is the blue, the Uncharted Mariner. So I'm going to use my tweezers like that, and I'm going to set them down on my mat and try not to lose them. And I'm going to grab my blue brush, and then all you have to, this is easy peasy, is just give them the same color. And then so I don't lose them, I'm going to put them right back on my stick. Press and seal. There we go. Set that aside. All right, now let's build our pretty ink blended owl. So you're going to want to grab your liquid adhesive again. And then this, all we have to do, all the hard work is done. All you have to do is put it together just like you did the others. So I'm going to start with the base layer and then take the layer that has all his little chest feathers. And we're going to dot, dot, dot. Line up his pointy tail and wing. Lay it down, and then we're going to shimmy it into place. And then you guys are going to watch this thing pop as it all comes together. Okay? So then we're going to go with the big wing. And then we're going to line up the points on the tail or that wing. And then we can pick it up and then shimmy everything into place. take the smaller wing. And then we're going to line up the shoulder this time, not the point. So we're going to go up here on the ridges of the shoulder. We're going to line it up, pick it up, and then make sure everything is puzzle pieced together. Okay. Next thing we want to do is take the mask with the beard, and we're going to add it onto his little face. And I hope by the time the end of this class is over with, you guys are going to feel really confident with the owl and how you can really dress up your die cuts very easily. And I went fairly slow so I could kind of chat with you guys, but it's not as long of a process as you would think. Okay, we're going to take the mask that has all the details, like the little indentions for his eyes, and let's add that onto his face.
Karen's saying you're doing great with the pace.
Okay, good. I'm going to try not to go over, but let's see, it's been an hour. I think I'm doing pretty good so far. Okay, now we're at this point on his little face. Look how fantastic that looks. We've got a little bit of the warm gray down here from that pumice stone going up into the cooler colors, his little white face underneath, the grays blending into the blues. I can't wait to see you guys' owls in the album. I'm so excited. Okay, now I'm going to take my handy dandy tweezers and I'm going to take our eyes that we colored with whatever color that you used. I'm matching mine to his wings. And I am going to add some dots, just a little bit here and there. And then that is going to nestle right in to those open spots.
Look at Avery's
Question, would it be the best time to do his beak on the layer? Yeah, you can do that. And I'll show you. I'll do that this time and I'll show you. You can do it either way. I've done it both ways, actually, when I was doing the sample cards. I've done it both ways. So Avery asked, so all of you could know what we're talking about. She said, wouldn't it be better to do his beak if you're going to color it in on this layer before you add the funny little mask on top? You can do it either way. I use that little open area when you put the mask on. I almost use it as a guide, just to kind of trace in there, but we'll do it the other way and I'll show you. You can do it either, and they both work. Okay. And you notice that on this layer, because we didn't do a dark, colored cardstock under here, we're going to have to add all those little details into his face. So Avery mentioned, can't we do it now? Yes. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you on this layer how I would add the details in. So I'm going to start with my black gel pen and I'm going to start it off on my little scratch sheet of paper. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do his little eyes under here, and it's just going to be a touch. And I'm going to fill in the little open crescent area right above the blue part of his eye that we cut. Okay.
Julian said he needs a nose job.
He needs a nose job. Totally. We're about to give him a nose job. We're about to give him a beak job. Okay. So we can kind of use this area as a little bit of a guide. Okay. So you can see and find the point that's on the mask right there. If I hold him up, maybe. Okay. See the little tiny point right there? That's going to be the very pointy tip part of his beak.
Can you zoom in so they can see the eyes? Or hold it up, maybe?
If I hold it up, I think it gets out of focus. Hold on. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit if you'll hold with me for a second. Okay? And you can see mine are not perfect. They're not fancy. That's okay. Does that help you guys being able to see it zoomed in like that? I'll leave him zoomed like this for a second. It's not perfect, and that's okay. All right, next thing we're going to do. I put his eyes, and now he looks like he's judging me. Totally judging you, Stephanie. Lisa's trying not to laugh. I'm just going to say I'm totally judgy. Judgy McJudgerson. Okay, let's do the beak. So I'm going to use that point as my little reference there. I'm going to start very carefully down here on that point, and I'm going to pull it out like so. Do like a little oval, little diamond shape there. Right? And then we've got that area. Okay. Now, if you want to add the whites to his eyes, you can do that now. You're going to want to let your black gel pen dry. But it's easy. All you're going to want to do is add a dot. Let me see if I can do it without making a mess. Light-handed. Just a little dot. There we go.
Jennifer said Judge Oliver Kohout.
Judge Oliver Kohout. Yeah. Totally. Look, he's looking beautiful. He's looking very handsome. All right, now is the white little XC part. And we're going to dab, dab, dab. My dogs are afraid of thunder. So if you hear the barking, they're afraid of the thunder that's outside. We did put them in downstairs away because it never fails during one of our honeybee crafty live streams, especially when we have thunderstorms. They will bark at the thunder. Okay, now we've got his little eyelashes and little areas onto his face, and his beak turned out good. See, you can do it either way. You can either put the top little masky part on and then just use that as your guide to carefully trace in there, or you can do it first. Just make sure that maybe you pull your black out just a little bit over here, and then it's all going to be, covered up by the white area of his mask. He's pretty. Now, if you wanted to add any little pencils or anything like that, now would be the time to do that. Simple little. Yeah, you can do that. Downstairs. She's very angry.
She is.
I don't want to do a lot because I'm really liking our ink blending that we have going on, but we can kind of pull some up here in the little areas of his head, down here. And again, use those embossed lines as your cheats. Just trace them. Okay. Love these so much. I'm so glad. I'm proud of you too, Margaret. Okay. You're inspiring me to mass produce these out. Good. You can totally do it. Totally do it. Okay. Now I'm going to zoom out just a hair. Okay. And then you guys, we're ready to build cards. We're ready to do some sentiments, and we're ready to make some pretty cards with our owls. You guys did it. You did the owls. Okay. So let's do our sentiment for card number 1. So you have a piece of scrap paper. I'm going to use my Misty. You can use any sentiment that you would like. We're moving and we're grooving here. I am going to stamp Happy Father's Day. And I like that our owl can be used for all different types of occasions. And we were kind of asked, you know, do you have any ideas for masculine themed cards, and what can we do? We talked about it. We thought, well, Father's Day is coming up, but this sentiment set gives you Happy Father's Day plus Happy Birthday and thank you, and some great basics that you can use on different types of cards. I'm just going to stamp this in good old black VersaFine ink. It's going to be nice and crisp. And let's make sure everything's lined up here in case I need to stamp it again. Yep. Thank goodness for the Misty, right? Let's make sure it's down there where it needs to go. There we go. That's looking better. Let's do one more dab. Third time's a charm. What did we ever do without our stamping tools? Okay, Happy Father's Day. Now, because this is VersaFine ink, I'm going to set this aside for just a couple of seconds because it's going to stay damp just a little while longer. And we're going to go on to another sentiment. So let's talk about the sentiment for our forest scene. So that is this that you should already have cut down. And let's go ahead and let's put that in the corner of our Misty because we're going to stamp directly onto our background. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys some time while I'm cleaning up here. I'm getting everything kind of set up. And I chose the sentiment Another Year Wiser. And I'm going to show you how an easy way to place your sentiment. So you're going to kind of want to decide in your Misty where you want your owl to perch, right? So kind of like so. So let's say he's going to go right there on his branch. So we know that we have this open area here. If you want to do your card like the sample card, that's how we can kind of line everything up to know that, you know, his head's not going to cover up any of the sentiment or anything like that. So we kind of have that set. I'm kind of holding everything with my fingers. And I'm going to pull it towards my head. I may get my crazy hair in the way. That looks pretty darn straight. Just like so. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close the door and pick that up. And now I can take away my die cuts. Make sure this is down nicely in the corner. And now our little sentiment is all ready to ink up. And it's going to be put in the perfect spot for our die cuts. There we go. One more time. There we go. Looking good. Okay. All right. So once you get this one stamped, go ahead and set it with your Happy Father's Day. And once we get our little assembly line finished, you guys are going to have 3 pretty cards. So you're going to want to take out your pretty floral background. And we're going to stamp. And on this one, I use Thank You. And I placed it up here, kind of nestled into the background. And I'm lifting my Misty just a hair to make sure. Let's get rid of this. Just to make sure that we get it pretty nice and straight. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to pick it up. And then I'm going to stamp this in the same shade as the leaves and the owl's feathers. So this is Uncharted Mariner. Okay. So we're going to ink up that thank you. Make sure it's nicely tucked into the corner. Close the door. Press, press, press. And that's looking pretty darn good. Let's do second time, just for good measure. And then if you want to trap your ink, that oxide ink, in your or on your background, you can trap it with clear embossing powder. So I have my clear embossing powder, and it's going to add a little bit of shine, tiny bit of a raised area. And there's not even any need really to use your anti-static powder for the sentiment part because it's nice and clear. And so if you get a little stray particle here and there, it's not going to hurt anything. Okay, I'm going to heat up my heat tool, and then we're going to trap that oxide ink underneath there. Okay, a little trick, if your paper curls up like this or your die cuts, anytime you heat emboss, if you'll heat it just for a second from the back side, it's going to help pull some of that curl out of your paper. It's not ever going to be perfectly flat again, but it's going to help pull a little bit of it out. Just a little bit. Okay, now we've got our 3 backgrounds, or our 3 sentiments all ready to go. So this one has had time to dry. So let's go ahead and trim it out. So I've got my paper trimmer, and I'll show you a trick that I learned from Kathy Zielski. So without using a die, you can line up your sentiment, the letters in your sentiment. I line it up with the edge. Let me pull it down with the edge of my trimmer right here. So I've got all my little letters. I'll kind of tilt it. Do you see where it looks like they're kind of sitting right there in that clear guide? So I've got them lined up. Everything's down. And then we trim it off just like so. And then we're going to flip it around. And then this time, I'm going to line up the top part of the letters. And then this way, when you trim it out, you have the same margin on the top and on the bottom. And you can do that on the sides as well. Like if you want to line up the edge of your Y and trim it, line up this side and trim it, you can line it up and use your little guides as a little guide to get everything nice and straight. Okay, so we got that good thing. We're ready to go. We're rocking and rolling. So let's take our white card base. you should have a white card base, and it could be a top folding, side folding, whatever you want it to be, whatever your preference is. And we're going to start adhering. Okay, now this is the point to where if you want to pop up your little backgrounds, you kind of want to think about that and do that. Let me see if I can find my bone folder. I'm going to adhere these today flat, and then I'll show you the samples that they're popped up. And it just gives you, you know, different options for different looks when you're creating. Okay, when I adhere my night sky background or my little window, I'm going to adhere with the bright royal blue towards the bottom because it looks like, you know, he's kind of sitting down in the trees and the night sky, and then it gets darker up into the stars. Okay, and so I'm just going to use my liquid adhesive again.
I want to know the size of the night sky.
The size of the night sky. It's in the instructions. Hold on. Okay, the size of the night sky. It is pre-class pipework. It's in here. Now, there was a misprint right here, the night sky. It should be cut to, it says 3 by 1/4 inch. Well, 1/4 inch is itsy bitsy. It should say 3 by 4 1/4 inches. Okay. And then this one here, the floral background, cut to 4 1/4. Well, 1/4 inch is only itsy bitsy. 4 and 4 1/4 inches. So when you see that, and Catherine and the team put all that in the guide and the notes and all that stuff on our group. So you should have all that. And then also the video, the prep video is key to getting all your little cuts and getting the best use out of your pattern paper that we provided for you. Okay, so we have our night sky adhered. We have our little window. Let's take our solid owl. That's the one that we're pretending that he was just cut out of solid color cardstock. Now, I wanted to change this up a little bit and not have him perched necessarily like this, but maybe like there's a tree branch coming out from the side. So you can do it either way. But I'm going to adhere my little branch. And we're going to have it coming out from the side just a little bit, like so. And then I'm going to adhere my owl. Yes. Make sure that's the right owl. And then we're going to place his little feet, you know, down here on the branch. And I like that his little tail kind of comes out of the window just a little bit, just like so. And then now we have our Happy Father's Day. I'm going to adhere this flat, but if you want to adhere it with foam squares or foam tape or what have you, by all means. And let me pick this up so I can get it, kind of eyeball it and get it nice and straight. And I'm going to do a little sentiment surgery over here. There we go. And then we have a little Happy Father's Day sentiment strip here. Okay, we're moving right along. Now, let me show you this before we get too far. Do you see how this is, the sample is all popped up with the foam? So that's just one option if you want to do that and add dimension. So flat and then popped up. All right, let's move on to our forest background. So if you'll pull out your patterned or your textured owl, your forest background, a craft card base, whether it's side folding or top folding, whatever is your preference. And this is another good one that if you want to stamp on the inside of your card, this is a good time to do that if you want to. Let me show you. So this says, another year wiser, happy birthday. Another year wiser and happy birthday. Or you could stamp happy birthday, another year wiser. You can play with all those sentiments and mix them around. How am I doing on time, Lise?
It's 12:01.
Okay, so we're doing pretty good.
We'll have a few minutes for Q&A.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to line that up to where we have a nice little margin all the way around. We're going to take our second little tree branch and I'm going to add some adhesive to him. This time I'm going to put it right down here, and I can kind of, before I maneuver everything, make sure that everything with the sentiment and our pretty owl is going to line up nicely before I really press that branch down. And then we've got our textured owl with all of his pretty feathers, and started to add all the little details into him, and he's going to perch right up there on the top, being Mr. Judgy Oliver Kohout. There we go. And then you guys have done 2 cards now. Okay. All right. Card number 3 also has a craft card base. So you guys keep on working on. You're doing so good. Let's see here. I love owls and can't wait for the May release. Yes, the May release is going to be amazing. Okay, our thank you background. If you want to adhere with foam to add your dimension or whatever, you can totally do that. And this is the one we heat embossed. So I'm going to make sure we have our margins all the way around really good. And then I'm going to really hold this down right up here. And I'm going to let that liquid adhesive do its job. Okay. Now we got our beauty that we ink blended. Okay. Now we're going to add this. This one is the one that we didn't cut a branch for. Now, if you want the little branch, by all means, you can add that in. I am going to nestle my little guy or gal right down here amongst the florals and the leaves and press that into place. Look how pretty that is with those blue eyes. Okay. And that's it, you guys. Okay, so we've got card number 1, starting with just solid colored cardstock or your scrap pile or whatever. We have card number 2 that is pulling out our hoard of pattern paper and looking for those small textures, the small patterns to give textures to the wings and to all the little die cuts. And then we have stepped up version, card number 3, where we started out with white cardstock and we did all of our ink blending and all of our decorating with our inks and our pens and our pencils and everything like that. Okay, now.
Jennifer said you rocked it.
Who said that?
Jennifer.
Oh, thank you. Okay, let's show you guys some samples, okay? So I'm going to move these off and we're going to make a album. Some of you may have seen some of these already, but Lisa made a really, really pretty one. Okay, so this is our pink sample. You guys have this paper in your pattern paper pad, okay? And some of this is adding things from your stash. So Jennifer and Kathy and Gina and everybody always talk about pulling out those dies and those sentiments and all those things to get more use of your supplies. So I use some of our layering frame dies to give that owl a little resting place. This is our Lovely Layers winter greenery. And then a sentiment from one of our honeybee sentiment sets, just a simple happy birthday. I inked this owl exactly like I did the blue owl, except for I pulled in pinks.
They're loving the pink.
Yeah, this is Catherine's card. Catherine requested a pink owl card. So you can see the difference. Same owl, but look at the different in looks that we get just by mixing up the ink colors and mixing up the pattern paper and stuff. Okay, let's take a look at another sample. This is Lisa's card that Lisa created. This is a very beautiful, very traditionally colored owl. Look at his rich, beautiful feathers. Again, she used the Lovely Layers winter greenery. And these are some layering frame dies called the opulent frames. Look how gorgeous this little guy is. All by blending him in a different color. Look at all the looks that we get from that one die set. Okay, so let's keep moving on. This is the Christmassy card. So I did a snowy owl. I trimmed the horns off of the top to give him a different look, get more use out of our dies. He kind of looks like Hedwig, I think. But again, mixed it with some of our Lovely Layers greenery, mixed in red pearls as little berries and things, added on a red card base. And this background is in your kit as well. And then add a Christmas sentiment. Easy peasy. And then we've got a Christmas card. But you can see very little ink blending or anything on this snowy owl. I did add some Tim Holtz rock candy, clear rock candy, the shimmer. See the shimmer?
They want to
for
know if
Christmas.
you're gonna post these.
Yes, I'm going to post all this and I'll tell you exactly what I used. I've just been waiting for after the class to post. Okay, let's see here. Okay, yahoo! How do you guys feel about it? Now that I can look up in the chat. You guys did so good. I survived. You survived. We did good. Never realized how many variations of the owl. Yeah, you can. Totally. You can make him look more like a barn owl, change his head, change his color of his eyes. You can leave the horns on, color them different. So many different variations, just changing up either your colored cardstock or the way that you ink blended. Ink blending things make things magical. It can change and make everything look different. Okay, fantastic. Yay for inky owls. Thank you, Delightful Doings.
Jennifer wants to meet the pups, so I'm going to let them up.
Oh, okay. They're going to be, as Lisa says, they're going to be wild as $9.
That's right.
Okay. All right, let me show you another birdie card for those bird lovers. So this is our new spring birds. So we already have layering birds at honeybeestamps.com. So this is a little robin. I started out, I'm going to go split screen here so we can see. I started out with colored cardstock. So it's like I started out with like the way we did card number 1. Colored cardstock, but then added some of those little zhizhy things to his feathers and things. This is a Lovely Layers cherry blossom. And so our birdies, spring birds, winter birds fit on our new cherry blossom. And the dogwood as well. So this is the dogwood, this is the cherry blossom, and our birds can perch there as well. And then our owl is going to get brand new accessories in May. Okay, come here. Come here. Come say hi to all the friends. All right, so this is Lily. All the friends want to say hi to Lily. This is Lily. You can hear Walter downstairs, the birds. This is Lily. And then we have Penny. Come here, Penny. Penny's my little craft partner. Come here, Penny. This is Penny. And then we have Scout. Scout, do you want to come say hi? All the come here, Scout. Come here, Scout. Come here. Come here. Come. No, she's not coming. She's the Australian Shepherd. She has a mind of her own. Yeah. And then the birdies are downstairs. Crazy town. We brab the birdies with food to be quiet. Hi, Scout. Yes. Thank you. Okay. I think it's about that time to log off. I will be over in the chat. I know that they're setting up like a little Q&A there. If you guys have questions, I'm always open for you guys to email me or private message me on Facebook. It's just under Kelley Kohout over there, so you can find me. And I love to help all of you guys out. If you have any questions, emails, have an issue, anything like that, I'd be happy to help you. But I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you guys have time to go grab a tea or a coffee and a snack, have a little bit of lunch. And then Lisa and I are super excited because we get to craft the rest of the evening. We've been following along with all the classes and with all the chats and everything. We were up until 3 o'clock this morning, crafting and card making away and just having a ball. And so I know you guys are really enjoying all the classes because we are too. So thank you so much for joining us. And I hope that we get to come back and share time with you again. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.